Welcome to We All Pod Down Here. I'm Brittany.
And I'm Dan.
We're a husband and wife who love horror movies.
Well, some horror movies.
Yes, some horror movies.
Definitely not all of them.
So, this is going to be our first episode, so I figured we'd go over kind of our plans for the podcast. So, my main goal is, I guess, to do movie and TV show recaps and reviews, possibly have some guests and maybe do some interviews. I'd love to eventually make Dan watch Irreversible.
We'll see about that.
It's a wonderful movie and you should watch it.
You're trying to irreverse my viewpoints.
Sure. Anyway, so do you have any other plans for the podcast, Dan?
Like you said, I'd love to watch a lot of different movies, maybe some stuff we've watched, maybe some classic stuff, get to talk about it. We have a lot of conversations about movies, and I think this will be fun.
Agreed.
So really what we were thinking of, also what inspired us to start a podcast, maybe there's a dumb top 100 list that we looked at that kind of made us chuckle and made me cry and rage.
I mean, let's just tell the listeners that the biggest problem with that list was the fact that The Conjuring was above all of the Dead movies.
The fact that The Conjuring was on it was a problem.
That was a problem. I think it was based on an algorithm, though, so I'm like, okay, fine, it's a newer movie, the algorithm picked it up, but I was like, excuse me, why is Night of the Living Dead almost near the bottom of this list? I think that the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari was on there, but also pretty low, and that
Are they trying to make Romero like the Rodney Dangerfield of horror? No respect at all.
So, that's pretty much what inspired us, though, is just we realized we were sitting around ranting, and I was like, maybe other people would like to also hear our random ramblings.
Yeah, why not? Share our mania.
Yes. So, what got us into horror? Dan, what got you into horror movies?
Being horrified.
Horrified of what? Life?
Pretty much.
Okay.
No, my grandfather had me watch Night of the Living Dead. That's the first exposure to horror I had, and, that really got me started.
How old were you when you watched that first?
Oh, geez, I was probably like 10.
So probably too young to be watching.
Oh, way too young, but, that's how a lot of times this stuff gets started. So, watching Night of the Living Dead really got me into it, and it's also, what you'll learn about me is I'm a big fan of zombie movies. So that's where a lot of my love of horror originates.
And then, of course, for me, I was terrified of horror growing up, but yet constantly watched it. I don't know why. I think I just like being punished.
Torturing yourself.
I do. So, yeah, no, I remember a bunch of movies would freak me out. Like, I remember, for whatever reason, Mimic scared the crap out of me.
Did you mimic?
No, I didn't, because I'm not a giant bug.
Well, that's true.
Spoiler alert, they're about bugs. That movie's, came out in, late 90s? I think we can spoil it by now.
I'm not a fan of bugs.
Yeah, and there is literally a wall of tarantulas behind us.
I know, right? Well, those are okay. They're arachnids.
Sure, this is true, but I'm still saying they kind of fall within that same category for some folks.
Yeah, but they don't bug me as much as others.
Folks, the dad jokes...
They used to, though.
The dad jokes are going to be real on this podcast, just for the record. We have no children, but yet Dan...
Be prepared.
Dan and I both are bad
Be
about
prepared
those.
for my stupid.
So, that said...
Also, a lot of this goes into, origins and stuff, where we grew up. I mentioned Night of the Living Dead being my introduction. I also grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where Night of the Living Dead was made. I grew up about a 10-minute drive from the Monroeville Mall. And if you don't know the Monroeville Mall, just excuse yourself right now. But that's where Dawn of the Dead, of course, was filmed. In my opinion, the greatest zombie and probably greatest horror movie ever. And, growing up in Pittsburgh, those movies are a big part of the culture there. They're a big deal. Everybody knows about those movies if you grew up in that area. So, that's where a lot of the love came from. And, going to a lot of, seeing those movies in a lot of different screenings and stuff like that, having been so lucky to have been able to meet Romero before he passed.
So jealous.
Rest in peace.
Wonderful man. How many people from those movies have you met? I know it's a lot.
A lot. I don't have a count.
We have to get that counted sometime.
But a
Because
good
you have a
amount
bunch of
them.
signed stuff. I've
Oh
seen.
yeah, because like almost every horror convention in Pittsburgh, you would have a ton of people from those movies because half of them still live in the area, and a lot of really wonderful people. Another thing, Chiller Theater, which is hosted by a local Pittsburgh radio host, Chili Billy Cardilli, very sweet guy. Got my dad an autographed picture. My dad adored him, just adores him. But he was another wonderful man and really nice guy, and he was he was in Night of the Living Dead, of course, and he had late night horror movies. That also was part of it. You know, you can tune in to like at midnight and watch a bunch of random horror movies and stuff like that, which I think a lot of people got their start kind of watching on like a local broadcast channel and watching all the crappy movies they would play at like 1 a.m.
And then MST3K was like, we can do something more with this.
Oh, I love you, MST3K.
Yeah, so like we're, speaking of, I guess I should jump in and mention where I grew up.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
So I grew up, part of it in Frederick, Maryland, which is, there's a lot of, ghost stories and legends there because we're so close to so many battlefields. But when I was about 12, my mom moved us out to Jefferson, and we were technically in the Jefferson zip code, but much closer to Burkittsville. So Burkittsville is, of course, where the Blair Witch Project was supposed to take place. So every day on like the school bus, I literally went right through Burkittsville. I have friends that were there like when the movie came out and told me their horror stories of people coming from all over the world desecrating that poor cemetery. They were trying to like steal bricks out of the side of buildings and like literally like chisel them out. There was a guy that
they tried to chisel them out, really?
That's what she told me. And then on top of that, we should have her on one day to talk about all this stuff because it was fun. But yeah, she had a neighbor that set up like a little stand outside his house and had rocks on it that he wrote from Burkittsville and was selling all the rocks out of his yard for like $5 a pop. And
just random rocks he pulled out of his yard?
Yeah, but he wrote like from Burkittsville on the rocks, and so people were buying them $5 a pop.
Now that is entrepreneurship.
It is. But yeah, so that was, so I actually didn't even see that movie until I first moved out there. Like I knew about it, but it sounded like something, everyone told me about like how shaky it was, and I decided I couldn't handle that until I got a little older.
One of the ones that first did the, single camera handheld kind of perspective.
Yeah, first that and first, like, as far as I can know, correct me if I'm wrong, first found footage as far as we can tell.
Yeah.
So, love it or hate it, it was definitely genre defining. I think we can all agree on that.
Agreed.
But like I said, I grew up a scaredy cat. I grew up, like, so afraid of a lot of this stuff. And, of course, the house didn't help. The house I grew up in was haunted. You were there. You've been there.
Oh, yeah,
and
for
nothing
sure.
really happened when you were there, though, right?
Well, I mean, except for the porcelain dolls.
Oh my gosh. My mother thought it was a wonderful idea when she was selling this house to set up this back bedroom with all these creepy porcelain dolls. And the realtor was like, you can't have this here. No one will buy this house. It looks haunted. And she's like, but they look so nice. And I was like, I told you this. I literally
No, they did not.
Well, they were right in the bedroom I was sleeping at the time. So I would, every night before bed, I would like barricade that door because I was like, they're going to come at me.
Because they're probably going to just start clanking their way right in there and say hello.
Yep. No, those things scared me.
You're going to punch it, and it's going to break, and you're going to
And then I got to explain to my mom.
Yeah, it's a
like why I punched a baby doll.
Exactly.
No one's going to believe me that it came at me in the night.
I probably would. Those things are creepy.
That you would, my mom would be like, that's not what happened.
Yeah, it probably would.
Yeah. But I think that's kind of where we're going to leave it for today. Just a really quick, short episode, kind of introduce ourselves, go over kind of what we're going to go over, and then I guess we're going to talk about tonight maybe what movie we want to do first that we want to review. Yeah. I think it'd be fun to sometimes do movies we've never seen before and kind of talk about it, what we know about it a little bit beforehand, go watch it, and then re-record, and then record the rest of it.
I'd love to talk about movies that, like, also the ones that we've seen that we adore and stuff like that. Maybe talk about the history of them, stuff like that, and stuff like that. Like, me, I'm going to want to dive into the Dead movies.
Of course.
Because they're the best.
They are wonderful. But so is the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Oh, absolute classic.
Das Cabinet des Dr. Caligari. It's because it's still Doctor, even though it's...
that's a movie I think a lot of horror fans... Like most hardcore horror fans have at least heard of it. Most of them have probably seen it, but there's a surprising amount that haven't.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad.
So for anyone who doesn't know, this movie is pretty much, most will agree, is probably the first horror movie ever created.
It's a psychological tour de force, really. Like it really messes with your head. And that's what's so wonderful about it.
Yeah, especially it's a silent film from 1922. I could be wrong, 20 or 22. I can't remember which, but yes, if you haven't seen that, I highly recommend it. I'm sure we'll review it at some point because I have so much I want to say about it, and I don't want to say it all at this moment, but there's a lot I want to say about it.
Yeah, we don't want an intro episode to be like 90 minutes.
Yeah. Come Astonishing Legends, just be like, no, we're not going to do it that long, and then here we are, 4-hour episodes.
Their 4 episodes are genius.
Oh, no, I'm not complaining.
Their stuff's
I'm not
genius.
complaining. I'm saying that, like, this, I don't know if anyone wants to listen to me ramble about one movie for 4 hours.
I have.
Yes, you have.
And you've heard me do the same thing.
Absolutely.
But do you think we could do a 4-hour episode on Monster?
No. No one should. No one should even know that movie. Why? Has Riff Tracks or any of them done that?
I don't know. I don't know what the rights would be for that. Obviously, they have to acquire rights and everything for that. I would not imagine that Monster would be all that expensive. But if you've never seen it, it's basically about a serial killer turned into a turd who hops out of toilets and kills people. Pretty hilarious. I highly suggest it if you would like something fun.
Does Mr. Hankey make an appearance?
And they couldn't afford him.
They could, of course not. Oy vey. Okay, well, like I said, I think that's probably a pretty good place to start, and then we'll go talk about what movie we want to talk about. Maybe Irreversible.
I don't know about that.
One of these days,
we'll get
folks,
there.
One of these days, I will get him to watch Irreversible. It is a masterpiece. All right, and that shall be the end of it. Thank you for listening.
Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe.
Share with your friends and family.
And check out our website at www.weallpoddownhere.com.
Or send us an email at weallpoddownhere@gmail.com.
You can also follow our shenanigans at weallpod on Twitter.
And at weallpoddownhere on Instagram.
And feel free to suggest a movie you want us to review or just something you want to make me uncomfortable with.
Until next time, this has been We All Pod Down Here.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.